It broke me as a person. It broke my 1-star streak too. Haven't given out a 1-star in over a year. Anyway, the girls now have tied him to a tree and have decided they are all going to take turns with him. I want to ruin her so that she's mine, my beautiful disaster, my wild creature, my goddess of chaos. Good Lord, he's dramatic. Enzo assaults Sawyer just because like he likes her too much. She's too pretty. I can't believe I bought this book not once, but twice, and I'm giving it 1 star. If this is on your TBR and you're waiting for me to tell you if you should read it or not, take it off your TBR. This is the weakest enemies to lovers I've ever seen. If this is your favorite book of all time, I'm scared of you. Last Kiss was just pointless. I think I hate it. Like, I just don't really care. It's not well written. That was stupid. I'm not a hater all the time, but I am today. 1 star. Yeah, so hi, I'm Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. And these are all the worst books that I read in 2024. There are like 60 of them, which is around 60, around 25% of my reading was terrible. And like sometimes I set myself up for it, and sometimes even my most anticipated reads of the year were terrible. Some of my book club picks, I humbly am wearing my Literally Dead Book Club merch because even I can't pick my own book club reads. Sometimes they're terrible. I'm just gonna go through every single title that I gave under a 3 this year. Some of these are 2.75, some of them are a 1. So it feels like there's a range, but this is everything that I disliked. And sometimes I'm gonna give you a reason, sometimes I'm not. I just wanna go through them all and tell you. We're starting with dinosaurs, as I kicked off the year with the dinosaur vlog. The Paleontologist by Luke Dumas, and Dino Island, The Lost Girls by J.R. Hogan. Sometimes, like I said, set myself up for reading things that I probably wasn't gonna like, but sometimes, like, I thought I would love this. How you make a horror story about ghost dinosaurs in a haunted museum boring is beyond me. He clearly did so much research about paleontology. It was fascinating to learn about the different, like, the field in general and all the different pieces. Maybe he's just written a nonfiction because he clearly didn't care about the plot. Then this one, a teacher who is attracted to his students and time travels and then gets to sleep with them all while also having to survive these dinosaur attacks. I don't even know what to say about it. Like, survival smut, not my genre. Next pairing, Butcher and Blackbird by Bryn Weaver and the Mindfuck series. Yes, I read all 5 books by S.T. Abbey. Serial killer romance? Not my genre. Let's talk about sharks next. Does It Hurt by H.D. Carlton and The Raw Shark Texts by Stephen Hall. This one had so much potential, such a unique premise, so fascinating, and then just kind of fell apart. And does it hurt? It did. It hurt me a lot, and I was desperately trying to just get on board with these silly, smutty things that other people love. I so deeply don't get this. Maybe you'd actually put it in the survival smut category. These two hated each other. He was drowning her, and I can't believe I finished it. I read a couple things that were just gross for the sake of being gross. Where I End by Sophie White and Paradise Rot. These were body horror filled, but I think focused too much on wanting to make the reader feel grossed out that forgot to give an actually compelling plot. They actually both had interesting messaging. It was just hard to wade through all of the liquids we were talking about to get to the point. Now, a lot of those I was obviously going into not expecting to love. They were outside of my comfort zone, and I just wanted to read some interesting, different things. These two I actually thought would be absolute favorites, and they let me down. The Honey Witch by Sine J. Shields and Lore of the Wilds by Annalise Sabrana. These were cozy fantasies about fairies, which I've really been liking lately, and witches. With both of these, it was the absolute breakneck pace to get from the real world into the fantasy one that completely threw me off. I just needed a little more time to get used to their real lives before they got thrown into this new environment. This needed a lot more editing, and this needed a lot less editing. I feel like this was set up to be a 600-page book, and then somebody sliced it in half, and there was so much left unclear and unsaid, and I could have really loved this journey and the romance and the soft vibes if we got more time to understand everything that was going on. With Lore of the Wilds, there was so much prepping for a scene that was about to happen and then reflecting on the scene that just happened that there wasn't actually much substance. And then when you introduce a whole new plot that changes things up and a whole new love interest at like 70% of the way through such an already short book, I don't know, this was a mess. This pairing, a woman is obsessed with her husband and a woman's husband's family is obsessed with her. This is My Husband, My Maud Ventura, and Now You're One of Us by Asa Nanami. Both of these were so dull. Considering the family is taking her into like, they're doing horrific things behind the scenes and she's trying to uncover things. It was just so much like family drama and back and forth of people trying to convince her that she's being manipulated and someone else trying to convince her. It was just a lot of talk. And then My Husband, you are in the inner ramblings of this woman who thinks that her husband is leaving her signals that he doesn't love her anymore. And it was just really uninteresting. Horror novellas, some of my favorite things to read. They don't always go well. Cold Snap by Lindy Ryan and The Woods All Black by Lee Mandelo had such interesting things to say and focuses. We've got reproductive justice and grief, but the plot was just focused in the weirdest places and I didn't understand what we were doing with neither of them. Me with mystery thriller books lately have just not been getting along, so I don't want to get into the full synopsis of everything that I didn't like, but The House in the Pines by Anna Reyes and The Quiet Tenant by Clémence Michelon were mystery books or thriller books about evil men being evil, and that was the only takeaway. None of This Is True by Lisa Jewell and First Light Wins by Ashley Elston were about people lying to each other. And that was it. One Perfect Couple by Ruth Ware and 27 Minutes by Ashley Tate. You could take out the middle 200 pages of both of these and they would be the exact same story. Then some of my Literally Dead Book Club picks. Devastating. Middle of the Night by Riley Sager and You Know What You Did by KT Duen were the most predictable things that I've read in a while. And honestly, with the authors that I've been reading for so many years, I just think that it's time for a rebrand. I think they want to write like just general fiction. I feel like we see so many authors going from literary fiction, general fiction into mystery and thriller and horror and fantasy and switching into that, but we don't see genre fiction authors moving into just like general ideas. Like maybe this could have been a great survival story, but she had to make it a thriller and I didn't think it was interesting. And he had to insert a mystery to make it his typical mystery book, but it didn't need that. Like you could have had these personal explorations without needing to put like the gimmicks in the other exhausting storylines when we could have just been understanding these characters. They could have been different books and they might have been better for me. I've got two thrillers I've completely forgotten what they're even about. Are You Sleeping by Kathleen Barber and Out by Natsuo Kirano, which I gave like just under a 3 to both, so I don't think they were the worst things ever, but I've completely forgotten them now. These two are really unfair because they're part of mystery series that I didn't like read the other books in the series. Zapped in the Zinnias is the final book in 26, how many letters are in the alphabet? 26. Book mystery series by Dale Meyer. I read the first 3 and then this last one, and it's shocking how little changed with this main character from the first to the final book and how the writing remained the same. Then Holy Terrors by Mary Dahim is a bed and breakfast mystery. Hated this main character so much. Oh, I've got more smutty things I never should have read. Last Kiss by Laura Lynn Page and Ice Planet Barbarians by Ruby Dixon. This I reread the first book, First Touch and Last Kiss, and this was just the most boring way to end out the duology. It was just people like fighting over this guy basically for 300 pages and trying to fix their friendship, but like nobody was actually interesting in there. And Ice Planet Barbarians, like I can just chalk up to not being for me. It could have been really fun though if it just stayed in that lane, but it was so dark and so intense. Things around consent and breeding gave me a big ick in here. Here's a stack of novellas that weren't for me. Story of the Eye by George Bataille was just gross for no reason. Conversation of the Three Wayfarers by Peter Weiss was completely nonsensical, but I think that's what I was going for. You Should Have Left by Daniel Kalman was just like the most pointless haunted house story ever. Graveyard Shift by ML Rio had so much potential, but it felt like the middle 100 pages of like a 400-page epic book about finding something strange in this grave and how all the characters deal with it and the research they have to do. But instead it just kind of gave us nothing. That was another book club pick of mine. Dirty Heads by Aaron Dries. I don't really remember. Pour One for the Devil by Theodore C. Van Altz Jr. I also don't really remember. Coupe de Grace by Sophia Aram could have been such an interesting story of this man in an underground labyrinth, contemplating ending his life and having to confront that. But instead, it had writing that didn't really make sense with the character we understood it to be. It should have been written in a different tense in my mind. And also, it really committed to a gimmick that I didn't like by the end. 2 S.T. Gibsons being on my list is pretty devastating considering how much I loved A Dowry of Blood, but An Education in Malice was just not the writing that I remember from this author. And Evocation is so beautiful. Can we please look at this one last time before I donate it? It was about this like fantasy world, this unique magic, this secret society, but we weren't in that. We were in this polyamorous relationship that was such a snooze fest. Oh, another short little story that did nothing for me, The Tale of the Tailor and the Three Dead Kings by Dan Jones. This is a retelling of a ghost story, and I liked the intro, which taught me about the original, but having read that and then the actual story, his idea of like making it more interesting, more of a proper ghost story, like no, it wasn't actually that. It was just like some guy going through the woods and being like, there's a bird, there's a horse. What do I do? Some short story collections that didn't land for me are 19 Claws and a Blackbird by Augustina Bazterrica, Zombie Sharks with Metal Teeth by Stephen Graham Jones, which was the biggest letdown because I love this author, but what the fuck was that? And The Devil You Know by Jen Farrell. These next 2 are ones that I read for the New York Times list, so obviously I'm an outlier here with not liking them. I don't need to, you know, explain myself or convince you that they're not good because I know that they just weren't for me. Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, I just don't care. And The Corrections by Jonathan Franzen, oh, I didn't care either. Family drama? Royal drama. I didn't love the first 2 books in the All for the Game series anyway, so there's no reason that this wouldn't have been a 1. The King's Men by Nora Sakovic. I do get why other people are into it, just not me. Grim Root by Bonnie Jo Stufflebeam had a lot of potential as this haunted reality show book, but it didn't commit to the haunting or the satire the way that I wanted it to. Book of Night by Holly Black and One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig are fantasy stories that I felt pretty much nothing towards. Don't think they had compelling characters or a magic system that really brought me in. It kind of just left me feeling meh. Assistant to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer, I read against my will, knowing that I would hate it, but I have liked some romantasy, so I am continuing to try to find the ones that I'll like. Unfortunately, also Bride by Ali Hazelwood is something I shouldn't have read, along with Archer's Voice by Mia Sheridan. I'm trying to find romance that I like. It's been 24 months since I've had a 5-star romance, but I have liked romance in other genres. So I thought Bride could be for me, but no. I thought the world building was pretty abysmal, and both of these characters were completely uninteresting, uncharismatic, unimaginative. Their connection didn't make any sense. Archer's Voice, their connection didn't make any sense either, and I don't like that couple together. If they were real people, I'd be telling that guy to run. The Small and the Mighty by Sharon McMahon was a really great concept, and I think highlighted great people who need more praise in history, but I thought it was kind of poorly written, really chaotic, and the author was talking down to us. Dark Fever is another one that I read that I have forgotten by this point, but really didn't work for me, and I wanted to like it. I want to like fairy stuff. And then this stack is the one that really hurts to end it out. The ones that I thought would be like new all-time favorite books. Some, like, there's such a mix in here of things I thought I would love, things that I read just for concepts, things that I knew I would hate and I had to read anyway. These though, these ones hurt. Vilest Things by Chloe Gong is a sequel to one of my favorite books, Immortal Longings, and I just don't think that this lived up to its own potential. Everything was lesser than the first book. The romance didn't feel as interesting, the concept not as interesting, the game not as interesting, the magic not as interesting. Everything you thought would be amplified was diluted. Model Home by River Solomon is such a crazy one because I love this author and other people are loving this, and so I'm still gonna recommend it like a lot, but I just didn't end up liking what the story was focused on. The messaging is fantastic, but I found it so chaotic with all of the characters and this idea of the haunted house that they grew up in and their parents dying. I just think the focus and the actual, like, genuinely the writing was, I really struggled with. And this one's a pretty hard pill for me to swallow. Everything the Darkness Eats by Eric LaRocca just felt like two of their short stories, and I love their short stories, that just got combined and tried to turn into a novel, and it just didn't work. And I hate a lot of what this book actually had to say, and I said in the vlog, I'm having a hard time separating if the author thinks these things or the characters think these things. And that's not something that I usually struggle with. My second last most disappointing read of the year is An Academy for Liars by Alexis Henderson, because I adore this author and I can't believe the potential this story had, the unique magic system. It could have been absolutely everything to me, this school for magic and the secret societies, but with such an ambitious magic system, there just wasn't the time to also develop the romance that I hated between a student and her advisor. It didn't have time to develop all the friendships and the side characters that it wanted. There wasn't time for this proper self-discovery. Even the time before she ends up in the school, you could have had hundreds of pages developing her life before. And when I tell you, this could have been one of my favorite books of all time, because her writing is so good and the plot just failed. I could not be more upset about my feelings about that one. And then this one I'm putting in my number one spot. These aren't numbered at all, but I left this for the end because like this makes me so angry that this exists. And again, it could have been something that I love. B. Castro, an author whose stuff I adore, her ideas, but Immortal Pleasures, taking this Aztec vampire and the real life story that exists and turning it into this, just like sex, like, okay, I'm a prude, sorry, I guess, sex filled and like gross sex filled stuff. Putting her in the modern day and having all of these like modern technology around, it made things cheap. Having all of these like romantic or sexual scenes with not even the love interest and then trying to get us on board for this romantic relationship. Like, what were we doing with this? There's a mystery and it was completely forgotten about. There were concepts introduced and then just dropped left and right. This had the potential to have so many good messages, but you can't get to that through such just like a weird and also boring lens. So that's it for me today. Hater Kayla is officially retiring. In 2024, I took some risks. I read some things I really shouldn't have. Sometimes it was fun, sometimes it was frustrating. And now I've gotten all of it out and I'm ready to move on to joy. 2025 is the year of happiness. I'm going to read almost exclusively things that I just want to read, and I hope that you like watching that journey with me. Sometimes they're still gonna go badly because there are things in here that I thought I would love. I can't always predict what's gonna happen, but I just want good vibes going forward. So wish me luck with that. Sorry for the negativity and sorry for the very quick and unthorough explanations here, but I could not spend hours of my day thinking more about these terrible books or my terrible experiences with them and trying to come up with like good reasons behind my negative reviews or the perfect person to recommend it to who will still love it. This is just what it is, and we're moving on to bigger and better things in 2025. Bye!